Okay. Good afternoon. Today you'll be practicing a skill that is beneficial in understanding the content of your reading. The skill is called using prior knowledge and experiences to understand your reading. Using prior experiences and knowledge will help you to connect to the content of your reading. New information can only make sense when we connect it to what we already know. For the purpose of this lesson, we'll be practicing this skill with a well-known children's story. How many of you know about the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Oh yes, you do as well. Okay, great. If you could take a moment to discuss in your group the themes, the characters, and the moral that is inside of the story. You have about 2 to 3 minutes to talk about that. Then we're going to go ahead and write that up on the board in English. Okay, go ahead and talk to your group members.
There are 3 bears in this story, and there's a girl with blonde hair, named Goldilocks. And what else happens? Help me out here, guys.
She goes to the house with 3 little bears, and then she tries all their forages, sits on all the chairs, and then at the end
And then
falls
sleeps in the
asleep.
beds. And which bed is she falls asleep in?
The baby bear.
Just right, isn't it? No one's just right?
Yeah, baby bears.
That's the baby bears, that's just right. Themes. So guys. Theme is that I feel like it was telling me that the theme is that you have to try things out before making plans. Yes?
And
All right.
never give up.
Never give up.
Okay, good?
See.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make a list of the different characters that you found in the story that you remember, the themes, and then the moral of the story that you guys think is the moral of the story. So if you could tell me a few of the characters really quickly.
Goldilocks.
Goldilocks. So we have Goldilocks. Okay.
3 bears.
Okay, that's okay. The 3 bears. Okay, which bears are there?
Mama bear.
Okay, we have Mama Bear,
Papa bear.
Papa Bear, and
I think baby bear.
Baby Bear. Okay, obviously you remember the story pretty well. And then who else? Anybody else in the story that remember? Where does the story take place?
The woods.
In the woods and
In a house.
in a house. So we have a house, and in the woods or a forest. Okay, and generally, what is one of the themes that you ladies spoke about in your group?
We decided the theme was to always try things out before making your final decision.
Okay, try something before you make a decision. Try something or try everything before you make a decision. Okay. And is there a moral to the story that you can think of? What is the moral of the story? What's the purpose of our story? Is it just to try things before making a decision? Or is there a moral to the story as well? Think about what happens to Goldilocks when she goes through and tries each one of those things. And what happens when the bears come back? Do they get upset?
Doesn't she run away at the end?
I think they, do they let her still sleep? Do they get upset? I don't think
Do they get? They don't get upset at all. So, would the moral of the story then be making a decision, trying everything before making a decision? Is that what you say would also be the moral and the theme?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and say yes. What we're going to be doing is now looking at this story from a different perspective using Spanish that we know. So, looking at the characters of the story and looking where it takes place and looking at our theme, try to come up with some things you might expect to see in Spanish, some of the words and some of the words and some of the dialogue that you might expect to hear in Spanish. Take another few moments to discuss that in your group, and then we'll come back together as a group together with me leading, okay?
So, is the bear?
There's a chica. So a yellow.
Mama, Papa, bebé, casa, bosque,
Árboles, trees. Bowl. What is bowl? I thought that was, no, that's silver. I thought that was silver. Bowl. Porridge bowl. Comida food. Dormir.
Dormir.
Sleeping. Comer to eat, okay. Sick. You got all this? Go.
Okay. We'll start with any one of you. What are some of the words that we're expecting to see in Spanish here?
Also,
Osos. ¿Qué significa osos?
bears,
Okay, osos son bears. ¿Qué más? Cama. Okay.
Pelo rubia.
Pelo rubia o rubio for Goldilocks, ¿no? Okay. ¿Qué más? La silla, when she breaks the chair, la silla, good. Okay. Casa. How about where is the setting? Árboles, what's the word for forest that we know? El bosque también, okay, takes place in the forest. Okay. Okay, how about the theme that we're going for? Those are some of the words that we'd expect to see. Maybe, how about some of the food that she eats? ¿Cómo se dice soup?
Sopa.
Una sopa, algo así, una sopa. How about when she falls asleep? We know the word to sleep. También dormir. Okay. So we can obviously pull out words that we know in Spanish so we can connect to what we've learned in English already, right? Okay. What theme then, if we were to come up with one general theme in Spanish, what could we say in Spanish that describes the action of our story?
Escoger. Choose.
Okay, escoger.
decidir,
Okay, escoger or decidir. What is Goldilocks deciding or choosing between here in the story? In Espanol, what could we say?
qué cosa ella me gusta.
Decidir la cosa que a ella le gusta. A ella le gusta. And not just le gusta, but the one that she likes the most. I always say the one that she likes the most. Okay? Que le gusta más, right? Que le gusta más. Okay, es el mejor. ¿Sí o no?
Sí.
Okay, muy bien. I'm going to now give to you the story, and hopefully having going through some of this, the story won't be too challenging for you to read because you're connecting it to what you already know in English. There are going to be some words in here that you may not know, but while you're reading, because you already know what you've learned in English and what you've read through in English, and we can come up with some of the connections from English to Spanish, it should be a lot easier for you now to go through this story and read it. Okay, I'm going to give a copy to each one of you. I'd like for you to read aloud, and then at the end, we're going to ask you to, in Spanish, tell me what you liked about the story, and then how would you change the story at the end? Okay, using what you already know, how would we change the story to make it more entertaining, perhaps, for someone that would be reading it?
Hubo una vez 3 osos que vivían en el bosque. Papá oso, mamá oso y bebé oso. Un día, mamá oso hizo una sopa de arroz con pollo. Como ya era mediodía, los osos se sentaron para comer. Papá oso probó la sopa primero y dijo, ¡ay, la sopa está muy caliente! Entonces, bebé oso y mamá oso querían comer la sopa, pero estaba tan caliente como la sopa de papá oso. Los 3 osos decidieron dar un paseo mientras se enfriaba la sopa. Era un día bonito del verano y hacía sol.
Los osos se divertían cuando una niña perdida llegó a la casa. Se llamaba Ricitos de Oro y era una chica curiosa. Ella siempre jugaba cerca de su casa, pero ese día se perdió en el bosque. Ricitos de Oro fue a la casa y miró por la ventana, pero no había nadie en el interior. Entonces abrió la puerta y entró a la casa. Ricitos se alegró cuando vio los 3 platos de sopa. Ricitos comió toda la sopa del plato pequeño porque estaba perfecta, ni demasiado caliente ni fría.
Hacía también en la casa 3 sillas, una grande, una mediana y otra pequeñita. Ricitos de Oro se sentó en la silla de Papá Oso, la de Mamá Oso, y por por fin la de bebé oso. Le gustaba más la silla cómoda de bebé oso, pero la silla era muy pequeña para ella. De repente se le rompió la silla y se cayó al suelo. Ella estaba muy cansada. La muchacha se acostó en la cama de papá oso, de mamá oso y de bebé oso. La cama de bebé oso era muy cómoda y ella se durmió enseguida. Poco después, los tres osos volvieron del bosque dispuestos a comer la sopa. Cuando vieron la puerta abierta, el plato vacío y la silla rota, los osos pensaban que alguien estaba en su casa en ese momento. Ellos fueron a investigar. ¡Qué sorpresa! Había una chica en la cama de bebé oso. Ella dormía, pero cuando oyó los voces se despertó asustada. La niña salió.
Okay, very good, chicas. Were some of the words that we expected to see inside of the story? ¿Sí o no?
Sí.
Sí. What were some of the words that we definitely heard? Osos, okay. Cama, claro que sí. Pelo rubio, or what? Another word that we thought pelo rubio, which means blonde hair. But what can we say after reading through the story to describe Goldilocks? Do we learn a new word that we already knew without having to worry about it?
Ricitos de oro.
Ricitos de oro. Okay, ricitos de oro, and that's how you say Goldilocks in Spanish. Did any of you have to stumble upon that, or did you stumble upon that when you were reading? Or did you just kind of roll with it and you knew what it meant? Okay, why do you think you knew what it meant already?
Well, oro means gold.
Oro means gold, so you're connecting with what you already knew, and you know what the name of the story is, right? So none of you had to ask me what ricitos de oro meant. You already knew that, no? Okay, that's what we're trying to do here with connecting some of the knowledge you had before with what we're doing with this particular reading. So ricitos de oro. Anything else up here that we saw? El bosque, la casa, sopa, dormir también, right? Okay? I think you guys did a really good job predicting what you might see in the story in Spanish, no? Did you feel like it was over your head, or did you feel like it was within your range? Do we understand generally what was happening in the story?
Yeah.
Okay, do you think it helped to talk through it before, to connect from English to Spanish what you'd be reading?
Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing we'd like you to do is just really quickly tell your partner or your group, talk to each other about what you like about the story, and then what you would change in the story, and then we'll share that, and then we'll be finished for the day. Okay?
En español.
En español, por favor.
Me gusta todo, pero yo me gusta más si la chica quedó en la casa y no salió.
También estoy de acuerdo.
¿No más? ¿Qué te gustas? ¿Algo?
Me gustó cuando una chica rompió las sillas.
Sí.
Es
Es cómico.
Sí.
Sí.
Okay, ¿y qué cambiarían? What would you change about the story? We can say this part in English. If I know you talked about it in Spanish, but for the purpose of our instruction today, what would you say that you'd change in the story?
Well, the ending, I prefer to maybe stay in the house, so maybe they would become like friends or talk about the situation and make it better.
Okay? Anybody else?
Maybe she would help clean up the mess she made.
Ah, okay, show that she's responsible. Okay, anything else? Okay. We'd like you to try to take this skill and use it in your future reading, okay? Connecting things to prior knowledge will always help you understand what you're reading, whatever text you decide to pick up. If you can connect it to your personal life or personal experiences, it makes it that much easier for you to understand, okay? I hope that this was beneficial for you today. I appreciate your assistance. Thank you for coming. Hasta luego.
Gracias.
Hasta luego, señor.